first I would like to thank the devotees who actually prepared the evening offering today, the Ecstasy feast. So devotees have come from Greensboro, the big team from Greensboro, who actually cooked a huge feast for the pleasure of their Lord Sri Radha Gurukhananda, Giriraj Govardhan, Srila Prabhupada, and all the Vaisnavas. So we'd like to thank all the devotees, headed by Mooney, Prabhu, Ram, Manjari Mataji, the whole team of devotees. So we'd like to thank all of them.
Haribol.
So if anyone would like to help in the offer some service, every week in the kitchen from 12 until 4, there's an opportunity to come and help in the kitchen by cleaning up, cutting vegetables. Please let me know if you'd like to volunteer one of the Sundays and come and offer some service in the temple. The next announcement is this is an announcement on behalf of the disciples of His Holiness Bhakti-Swami Maharaj. So this Wednesday is actually Guru Purnima. It is actually also the disappearance day of Srila Sanatana Goswami. And it was on this day 2 years back, His Holiness Bhakti-Swami Maharaj departed to the spiritual world. So this Wednesday actually marks the Tirobhav or the disappearance festival. So this Wednesday evening, we will actually have a festival glorifying Maharaj, honoring him. So we'd like to, all the disciples, would like to personally invite all of you. So please do join us. The program will start at 6 p.m. and we'll have offerings, aarti, pushpanjali, and then we'll have a wonderful dinner prasadam for all of you. So please do join us. This coming Wednesday, 13, starting at 6 p.m. in the evening. And also coming up, our biggest festival of the year is Sri Krishna Janmashtami. So it is, that's like a festival that we get thousands of people here every year. And this year it is actually falling on a Friday evening. So I think we'll have a huge crowd. So we need a lot of help organizing this huge festival. So I'm already putting the word out. It is 19th of August, Friday. So it's almost 40 days from now, but we need to start planning, we need to start, already making all the plans, organization. So I'd like to invite all of you to actually help with this organization and planning. And this coming week, we have all the flyers and all the information we send out on WhatsApp and email and so on. So please share this information to your friends, families, and also it will be at your Facebook event that you can like and share. And please share the word everywhere. And we'd like to invite everyone to join us and receive the blessings of Sri Radha Gurukhananda on the most auspicious day of Sri Krishna Janmashtami. So it's 40 days from now. So please start thinking about it, and you can get in touch with me, and I can also show you different departments where you can actually volunteer. And also I would like to mention that for Janmashtami, I think many of you are familiar with the aspects that we do. There's like a boat festival, there's Abhishek, and then we do like the breaking of the pot of butter. And we have so many wonderful festivities and cultural programs. But in addition to that, if you get an inspiration that maybe we can do something different, something additional this Janmashtami, please think about it and please let me know. We have time to plan, so we want to do a wonderful Janmashtami celebration. So I think that's the announcements for this evening. So this Wednesday is the disappearance festival for His Holiness Bhakti-Swami Maharaj. So if you are, please, we request you to please join us Wednesday evening. Honoring Maharaj. So thank you so much. And as I announced earlier, our program schedule is we have class, and immediately after class we proceed downstairs in the hall. We have two wonderful dance performances, and this is for the Guru Purnima, which is on Wednesday. So we'll have that downstairs, and then we'll be serving the dinner also downstairs in the hall. So immediately after class, we proceed downstairs for the cultural performance. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Also request everyone, please come forward for the class. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you all for coming today in spite of the inclement weather. all you brave souls who came. So, we're going to have a class, but the class is actually going to be a little shorter than normal because there's the dance at 5:30. And I'm not going to be dancing, don't worry. We will have some professional or semi-professional devotees dancing. So first let's chant Jai Radha Madhava. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari Malava Girivaruda Jaya Gopi Jana Gopi Jana Malava Girivaruda Jaya Gopi Jana Vanachari Yamana Chela Vanachari Jai Durga Kumar Punya Vihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivarudari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivarudari Yasodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Chera Vanachari Yamana Chera Vanachari Jayu Rama Kunya Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paramahansa also Teda Satashi Shimad His Divine Grace Chaitanya Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anandakoti Vaisnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Friends say Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopi Gopinath Sayan Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavanam Ki Jai. Maturadam Ki Jai. Jagadasami Ki Jai. Yuvanamai Ki Jai. Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya. Krishna Prastaya Bhutale. Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurani Pacharani. Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschachat Deja Tarini. Om Aganat Mirandasya Gananjana Shlakya Chakshuram Meditam Yena Tasmai Shivadave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So, we had this nice chanting session right before the class. Everybody was chanting japa together. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And I'm sure that you were all experiencing a little bit of ecstasy. So we're going to talk about how to increase the ecstasy or the taste in today's class. And of course, first I'm going to mention why there's ecstasy in the holy name. So people may ask, why do we get ecstasy? And Namachintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Punashita Nityamukto Vinatvam Namanamino. And for those of you who don't understand Sanskrit, which I assume most of you don't, that Nama Chintamani, the name Chintamani, means like a precious stone, jewel, desired stone. That's what the word Chintamani means. Like desire, like some of you may be aware of Sparshamani. Sparshamani means basically the same thing, a jewel. And some of you may be interested in a stone that can turn bell metal or turn everything to gold, right? Some of you may be interested in that. And I'll tell you an interesting story about that. Contrasting it with the real wealth. So, once upon a time, there was a gentleman who heard about this Sparshamani, this not spiritual Sparshamani, the material Sparshamani, not the name of Krishna. He heard about a touchstone. It's a little bit like the Midas story. So he heard about this touchstone, and he was a devotee of Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva is a very special personality. He's called Ashutosh. He can be pleased very easily, and he can be angered very easily. So this particular gentleman was a devotee of Lord Shiva, and he really wanted wealth. And he asked Lord Shiva, where can I get wealth? And Lord Shiva said, you should get a touchstone. And he said, where is that touchstone? And Lord Shiva said, this touchstone is with a devotee of Krishna. His name is Sanatana Goswami. And Sanatana Goswami has this touchstone. So where is Sanatana Goswami? He's in Vrindavan. So, on the banks of the Yamuna, the sacred river Yamuna. So anyway, so he goes to see Sanatana Goswami and says, can I have your touchstone? And Sanatana Goswami says, sure thing. And he says, where is it? And Sanatana Goswami says, it's right there in the dumpster. Well, garbage. It's right there in the garbage. And so the man goes, and he gets it, and he becomes really excited. And he starts turning everything to gold. His shoes, everything. Obviously, he doesn't turn his whole body to gold because then he would die. So he starts turning everything to gold, but then he realizes there is something more that Sanatana Goswami must have if he actually had that touchstone in the garbage. And so he goes back to Sanatana Goswami, and Sanatana Goswami is asked by him, what do you have more or better than the touchstone? And Sanatana Goswami says, well, I got news for you. You got to throw the touchstone away first, and I'll tell you. And the man was having some conflict there, you know. Actually, he was extremely traumatized. You know, so his hand was just like in spasms. Like, oh, throw it away. No, keep it, throw it away, keep it. You know, back and forth, back and forth. Finally, he just shuts his eyes and he throws this touchstone into the Yamuna River. And you know, once it's in the river, nobody's going to find it. It didn't turn the river to gold, don't worry. That would have been a problem. So then he says, what do you have? And he says, here, give me your ear, your right ear. And he chants in his right ear. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So that's Namachintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. So the full taste of Krishna's holy name, Rasa Vigraha, the form, the full taste of Krishna's holy name is within the name. And Purna, it is complete. What do we mean by complete? Krishna, Om Purna, Purnamidam, Purnat Purnas, Dashate, Purnasha Purnam Adaya, Purnam Eva Vashishyate, as the Ishopanishad states, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is perfect and complete, and everything comes from him, and of course everything comes from him, they're complete units unto themselves, and he doesn't lose his perfect and completeness by emanating or creating or manifesting his energy. Another verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Ham Sarvasya Prabhu Matak Sarvam Pravarte Iti Matva Bhajanti Vam Buddha Bhava Samavata. I am the source of everything, all the material and spiritual worlds. And another point is that Krishna is the reservoir of all pleasure. Because here we're talking about pleasure, ecstasy, happiness. That's how we started this whole discussion. Krishna is the reservoir of all pleasure. Namachintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. Purna, complete. Shuddha, pure. Nityamukto, eternally liberated. And here's the final statement. Vinatvam namanami no. It is the same as Krishna. What does the word Krishna mean? It means many different things. Of course, it's Krishna. It's non-different from Krishna. Or he is non-different. Or he is Krishna. So, it means Krishna, to attract us and to give us bliss. Krish means attraction. And na means ananda. Just like you hear the word Satchidananda, eternity, bliss. Eternity, knowledge, and bliss. So it gives us bliss, happiness, when you come in contact with Krishna. So that's the holy name. And that's called Nama Ruchi, which is one of the two main reasons that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared. Another one is Jivadoy. Jivadoy means compassion for all of us, because we're all Jiva souls. Krishna is God, and we are Jiva souls. We are Mami Bangsa Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, Anashikstani, Andrida, Ani, Prakritistani, Karshati. We are part and parcel of Krishna. So the question is, how do we get, so this is what I'm getting to now, so don't worry. How do we get that Namaruchi? You know, some of us, we may be struggling when we chant. Why don't we have this Namaruchi? And why do we have Jivadoya? Why are we envious of others? And what is the reason, or how can we get this namaruchi? And that's what I'm going to talk about right now. So I'm going to read a verse spoken in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that's quoting Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prabhu, this is from the Madhya Leela 16th chapter, text 70. Prabhu kahe Vaisnava seva, nama sankirtan duikari shigra bhave, Shri Krishna charan. And that means you should engage yourself in the service of the servants of Krishna. That's called Vaisnava seva. And always chant the holy name of Krishna. If you do these two things, you will very soon attain shelter at Krishna's lotus feet. So in other words, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is emphasizing, in addition to always chanting the holy name, Kirtaniya Sadhare. Of course, in the Shikshashtaka he mentions that if you really want to be able to chant the holy name constantly, what Trinadapi Samichina Turo Ivasihishnana, Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadhare, you have to be humble. I had to go close to the mic because it's hard for me to say that word. You have to be humble. You have to be more tolerant than a tree. You have to be devoid of all sense of false prestige, thinking yourself better than others, or wanting profit, adoration, and distinction. And you have to be ready to serve others. There's that Vaisnava seva again. So the question is, how do we identify a Vaishnava? You know, Vaishnava basically means a devotee of Vishnu. And of course, Vishnu, Krishna, Ete Changsa, Kalakpumsa, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of God, and he manifests himself. Sometimes the word used is expansion. He manifests himself in different aspects, in different incarnations. Vishnu, Narayan, Nrsingadev, Matsya, Kurma, Varaha. There's as many manifestations of God as there are waves in the ocean. In other words, unlimited. Unlimited. So a Vaisnava is a person who worships, serves without motivation, personal motivation, out of love, isn't it? Out of love, one of the various manifestations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And especially we're interested here in what's called a Mahatma, the greatest Vaishnava. And Krishna describes what a Mahatma is. Srila Prabhupada would often talk about how sometimes people would rubber stamp a Mahatma. Prabhupada said, for someone who's interested in wealth, a big businessman is a Mahatma. And someone who's interested in politics, a politician, a big politician is a Mahatma. But Krishna himself in the Gita states, Mahatmanas tu mam parta, daivam prakriti mashuta, bhajanjananya manaso, ketwa bhutadam abhiyam. A Mahatma is one who is always engaged in Krishna's service, and who's always hearing and chanting Machata, Madgata, Prana, Pariyantascha, Parasparam, Katyantascha, Bhavam Nicham, Tushanti Cha, Ramati Cha, who's always deriving great satisfaction and bliss by glorifying the Supreme Personality. Got it? That's what a Mahatma is. So if one serves this Mahatma, associates with this Mahatma, there's different verses like Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Koi. Lavamatra Sadhu Sangha Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Even for the 11th of a second, then one reaches all perfection. Another verse from the Bhagavatam is Mahat Seva Mahur Vimuktes. By serving a great soul, one gets liberated. Of course, we're talking about Krishna conscious liberation. So that is actually the secret. And the secret, anyway. Now I'm going to tell you a story that illustrates this. The reason I'm speaking about this in class is because recently we read this story in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and I feel very inspired by it. It's a story of a devotee named Kalidas. Kalidas was born in a Brahmin family, very high-class Brahmin family. If those of you are not aware, of course those of you from India know that there's this sometimes caste distinction between what sort of family you're born in, like that. I mean, unfortunately, that's present today, but it's not actually a product of the Vedic culture. It's a product of basically perversion of the Vedic culture. Because Krishna says in the Gita, Chaturvar Mayashvishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasha, that one is known according to his qualities and work. Guna Karma Vibhagasha. Not according to one's janma. But unfortunately, it's become perverted nowadays in recent times like that. So anyway, so this particular individual was from a high-class Brahmin family, considered really high class. I mean, even amongst Brahmins sometimes there were high class and lower class Brahmins. Like you all know that story of Shakshi Gopal, where a man from a high class Brahmin family, so-called high class Brahmin family, promised his daughter to a man, a young man, from a lower caste Brahmin family, and the higher caste Brahmin family members, like the wife of the guy, I shouldn't say guy, he's a devotee, the wife of the devotee and the son, they actually threatened to commit suicide if that marriage would take place. But in Lord Chaitanya's movement, these distinctions are not considered. Dina hina yatachilo harinam udavilo. If one chants, whether one's coming from a fallen background or an elevated background, if he chants, then he's considered elevated. Another verse is, Aho bhakta swa pachito gariyan yaji vagre vartate namatubhyam te pusta pushta huva sharsna arya brahmanutu nama grananta yete. It doesn't matter. If one chants the holy names, it's understood that he's actually become a Brahmin. If he chants purely, of course. So, this particular individual, Kalidas, he basically understood that all Vaisnavas are equal. He had this realization. I mean, Lord Chaitanya's devotees understand this. They don't make caste distinction. Actually, if one makes caste distinction, it's described that one is a resident of hell. If one distinguishes a Vaisnava based upon caste or based upon birth. So anyway, so this devotee didn't do this. And so he set out to render service to every Vaishnava in the local area, regardless of caste or regardless of birth. Not only did he render service, but he understood some very powerful things that could help one develop namaruchi. And those powerful things are the foot bathing water of a Vaishnava, the foot dust of a Vaishnava, and the remnants of a Vaishnava. And of course, service to a Vaishnava, obviously. Mahatseva Mahorvi Muktes, which we just quoted before. So he understood that. Hare Krishna. So he understood that, so he went to all sorts of Vaisnavas, and there's one particular Vaishnava that's mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. His name was Jadu Thakura. Jadu Thakur was from what was considered a Shudra caste, very, very low caste. And Kalidas, he wanted to take the remnants and take the foot dust of every Vaishnava. So he went to this person's house, and this person was married, and he visited him, and he discussed Krishna Katha with his Vaisnava. And he gave a gift. He gave something wrapped up in banana leaves, and I'll describe what that was in a second. So he gave a gift, and then he said to Jadoo Thakur, who was from the lower caste family, and Kalidas was from the high family, said, "Can I have your foot dust?" And then Jadoo Thakur was shocked. "Oh my God, I will go to hell," because he was thinking caste consciousness, why is this high-class Brahmana asking for this? So he was shocked by that request. But then Kalidas began to recite many different verses, especially the verse, Ahobata Swapachi Talgodiyan Yajivagre Vartate Namatupyam, that if one is actually chanting the holy name, it's understood that he's undergone all the preliminary austerities and rituals and procedures and samskaras, and he's come to the platform of being a Brahmin. Brahmin, for those of you who don't know what Brahmin means, Brahmin is the one who knows Brahman, one who knows spirit, who's situated in the mode of goodness. He's equipoised, he's self-controlled, he has knowledge, and he practices the knowledge, etc. That's there in the Bhagavad Gita. So, anyway, Jadoo Thakur, being very humble, said, yes, all these verses are true, but I'm not a Vaishnava. That's another point. Like Prabhupada one time wrote to a devotee who called himself a Vaishnava, and Prabhupada said, a Vaishnava doesn't call himself a Vaishnava. Of course, if someone asks us, are you a devotee? We'll say yes. But internally, we'll be thinking, I have no devotion. This is humility. This is great humility. So Jadoo Thakur said, basically, yes, that's true, but I'm not actually a Vaishnava. And so Kalidas didn't argue with him that much. He just said, okay, here's the gift for you. I have to leave. So Jadoo Thakur, having etiquette, followed his guest for some distance, followed Kalidas for some distance, and then he went back home, and Kalidas saw the footprints of Jadoo Thakur in the, because there were no concrete roads at that particular time, and he took the dust from the footprints of Jadoo Thakur. That's humility. That's humility. I mean, I don't claim to be humble, but when I used to walk with Prabhupada on the beach, I would take the sand from Prabhupada's footprints, like that. I would go behind Prabhupada and just throw it into my mouth. And then also I would, when Prabhupada would leave his plate over after he took prasadam, I would eat everything on the plate, including the grape stems and the orange rinds and everything like that. So it's a secret. I'm not saying that I achieved anything, but I was anxious. I was enthusiastic. So then, what does Kalidas do? He hides out near the house. And in the meantime, Jadoo Thakur and his wife, they're eating the mangoes that were left. The mangoes were actually the thing that were wrapped in the banana leaves. So they're eating the mangoes and sucking on the skin. I don't know if you know how to eat mangoes, but you suck on the skin, even suck on the pits. And so, you make sure you get everything. And so then they threw it all out. Don't worry, it's not plastic. It's ecological, banana leaves, isn't it? Seeds, skin, biodegradable. I have to make sure that people understand that. When I first went to India, we would always eat on leaf plates. And now they use, plastic plates sometimes. And even when they make leaf plates, sometimes they put a layer of plastic between the two leaves to make sure that the liquid doesn't get out. But anyway, ecology is very important. So he would hide out, or he hid out, and he waited until they threw the seeds, the seeds from the mangoes and the skin, and then he picked it up and he sucked on it. And he was very happy. And he did that with everybody in the Mayapur area, regardless of caste. So you may say, oh my God, fanatic. But let me tell you what happened. The way he was rewarded, I mean, he was a pure devotee, he was very humble, I understand that, is that he went to join Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri. And when he went to join Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri, he accompanied Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu one time to the temple. Now, the main entrance to the temple is called the Singha Dwara Gate, or Singha Dwara, because I say Dwara and Gate, it's the same thing. The Singha Gate or the Singha Dwara. Dwara means like a door. Lord Chaitanya, before he would enter the temple, he would bathe his feet. This is a tradition in India. Why? Because people are walking around, their feet get dirty, just like we take off our shoes. In some temples, they actually have running water on the ground, like in Tirumala, where you just like walk and your feet are washed automatically when you enter the temple. But this is the tradition. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had his servant Govinda carry a water pot which he used to wash his feet. And Kalidas, guess what? He put his palms below Lord Chaitanya's feet 3 times. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, well, after 3, he said, okay, Krishna's fulfilled your desire. But in other words, Lord Chaitanya had given instructions to Govinda not to permit that. No one should do that, because people would generally try to sneak and do that. And sometimes when people would try to sneak and do that, like there's one instance where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was cleansing the Gundicha temple. And one devotee, while he was cleansing the temple, poured water on Lord Chaitanya's feet and drank it. And Lord Chaitanya got very upset, very angry. And he told Sarup Damodar Goswami, Bengali Vaisnava, what has he done? So in this particular case, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very, very pleased, and he allowed this. And so Kalidas got the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Can you imagine that? God himself, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and being able to take the water from his feet. So that's the faith. I know, I'm not suggesting, don't get me wrong, that you all go around and do that with each other. That's not what I'm suggesting. But there's a principle behind that. The principle is when we serve the Vaisnavas, we get a taste for the holy name, we get Lord Chaitanya's association. And just one other quick story, just to illustrate the same point. It's a story of Narda Mooney. Narda Mooney, before he became Narda Mooney, was born in a family, well, very, very servant family like that. And he was residing with his mother. His father's not even mentioned. You can get an idea what sort of family it was. And during 4 months of the rainy season in India, well, we had our rainy season today. The rainy season in India is such that the sages don't travel, or didn't travel. It was before roads, it was before airplanes, before trains, and everything else. So during the 4 months of the rainy season, he and his mother served these great personalities. They called Bhaktivedantas, great sages. And as a result of that, and he also took initiation during those 4 months, and he took the remnants of the sages one time. And as a result of that, he became the great Narda Muni. Wow. And there's so many stories about serving Vaisnavas, following their directions, and you can go tell the Valmiki story from the Ramayana. I can even tell the story of Magrari, who was a hunter, who became a pure devotee, or a prostitute who is trying to attract Haridas Thakur and got his mercy. There's so many stories, but basically they're all illustrating the same thing. Yasha prasada bhagavat prasada yasa prasada nagatopi. That if you please and you serve and you respect great personalities, then you get this namaruchi. And when you get namaruchi, you experience something called, on a higher state, of course, bhavas, or intense emotional ecstasies. You're crying in ecstasy. You're rolling on the ground in ecstasy. Of course, don't do that today. But these symptoms and this happiness, namaruchi, can be had simply by serving Vaisnavas. So I said I would keep it short. I actually spoke a little longer than I thought I would. It's because we have a dance performance downstairs. So anybody have any questions or comments? Yes?
So if
Tori.
we're in a situation where we are not really within the proximity of the Vaishnavas so often, how do we best serve the Vaishnavas?
We serve their instructions. That's service. What is service? Service means to understand what the person or persons we're serving want. Like Prabhupada gave the example one time that if the person you're serving asks for water and you bring him milk, that's not service. Even though, milk is considered one sense better than water. So in other words, it means not to speculate, to do what pleases the person. And so we have the advantage of being able to serve His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and we have his instructions. And we see in Srila Prabhupada's own life, of course, Prabhupada was always a pure devotee, an interested devotee. In Prabhupada's own life, that his mood of service towards his guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, empowered him to do what nobody else could do. So that's another point. When we serve Vaishnavas, we get the success potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It says that the success potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is within the instructions and order of the pure devotee of the Lord. So that's another advantage too. Not only do you get bliss, you become successful, and Prabhupada was able to do something simply amazing. I was listening to one memory, the devotee was talking about his experience with Prabhupada. One time Prabhupada was doing a Pandel program in India, and there were like 15,000 people. And there were about 20 or 30 Western devotees in front of Prabhupada on the Pandel. And people used to come up and ask questions. So they give someone a microphone, ask a question. And they said, Swamiji, can you do miracles? Sorry about the accent. And then Prabhupada didn't even say anything. He just pointed out, all these dancing white elephants. Yeah. So Prabhupada just pointed that out. And Prabhupada said, this is the miracle. This is a miracle. Changing people's consciousness. I mean, when you find, like we gave the example before about Magrari, the hunter, or the prostitute who became great pure devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is a touchstone. We talked about touchstones before. Namachintamani Krishna's Chaitanya. That's a big rap. So if we come in contact with Krishna's holy names, that will change our consciousness and reveal what is actually there in our hearts. We are actually Krishna conscious. It's a question of remembering it. Cheto darpanam arjanam bhava mahadbhakti nirvapanam. By cleansing the heart, we come to the right platform. Okay, I think we have to end now. I think it's time for the dance downstairs in the hall. Thank you all for coming on this day. All glory is to His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So let's thank Krishna Goswami Maharaj for the wonderful class.